welcome or welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Ayana. I'm a licensed massage therapist, esthetician, and spa owner. And in this video, we're talking about phrases that every single massage therapist should know. I was inspired to create this video because I was thinking, what are the things that I struggled with in my practice over time? And one of the things I struggled with was figuring out what to say, figuring out how not to feel awkward, figuring out how to end the session. Let me know that I'm not the only one who struggled with this, figuring out what would I say to encourage clients to come back to my practice, all that stuff. So I'm going to give you my exact phrasing, my exact scripts of what I say during my session, during my intake, after the session, and also how I set boundaries and what are some of the things that I say to my clients. So let's start with our intake process. So the intake is going to vary based on, what type of massage you do, what their goals for the session are, and so many different other factors. But I want to tell you kind of just what I say after I've done my intake and I've already discussed what their goals are for the session and all that good stuff. One of the things I might do during the intake process is, especially if they're a new client, is I'm going to set the expectation. So I'm going to tell them what they can expect from me, and then I'll tell them what I expect from them. Because with new clients, especially people who have never even had a massage session before or a facial before, they don't really know what to expect. So if you don't clearly communicate what they should expect, then you might find your client will get on top of the table with their clothes fully on because you didn't communicate properly what they should have done when you left the room before starting the session. Something I will say is I'll talk about the pressure. So this is the exact phrasing that I will use. I will say, for pressure, I like to start off light, and after I've warmed up the tissues, I'll go a little bit deeper, and then I will check in with you to make sure that the pressure is good. And at that time, feel free to let me know if you need more or less pressure. Other than that, I'm just going to let you get in your zone. I'm not going to disturb you relaxing. So I'll say something along those lines. That's the phrasing I'll use. Even with saying that, I'm just letting them know I start off light. I'm not going to jam my elbow into your back, the first 2 minutes. Just, be patient with the process. That's essentially what I'm communicating when I say, I start off light and then I add pressure over time. Another thing that I'll say during my intake process is setting the expectation for what happens after I leave the room. So I'll say this exact phrase. I'll say, feel free to disrobe to your comfort level. Most people get down to their underwear, but whatever you're comfortable with is okay with me. When I leave the room, after you disrobe to your comfort level, I want you to get underneath the first 2 set of sheets, and I'm gonna be starting you facing the ceiling. So you'll be facing the ceiling and you'll be fully covered underneath the 2 sheets. So that essentially is what I would say in order to let them know what happens after I leave the room, that they can disrobe to their comfort level and that they can get under the 2 sheets. Yeah, I will be starting them facing the ceiling. I like to say facing the ceiling instead of saying, I'll start you supine, because it's layman's terms. You don't want to confuse people with our medical terminology and all that stuff. So that's essentially what I will say during the intake process. After I've said that, I'll say sound good, or I'll ask them if they have any questions for me, and at that time I can ask them questions that maybe I didn't answer before. So that is what I say during my intake. Let's move on to what to say during the session. So your client is on the table, you start off with some compressions, you start doing the session, and then about 10 minutes into the session of actually doing the massage, at this point I'm going to check in with the pressure. So I'm going to say, how's the pressure? Could it be deeper or lighter? Just like that. That's all I say, because I don't want to say, how's the pressure? Because that's too open-ended. Having an open-ended question like that, your client could say something like, it's good. It could be deeper. But some clients are not comfortable with actually telling you what they want or what they need. That's why I am very specific and I say, could the pressure be deeper or lighter? And that's probably during a session that is more traditional, During something like lymphatic drainage, I will check in with them, but less often because the pressure has to be specific. So again, it depends on what type of massage you do, but yeah, so that's how I check in with the pressure. I will say, could it be deeper or lighter? So you want to ask a very specific question, and then of course you'll adjust accordingly. So after I've adjusted the pressure, I will say, how is this? Could it be deeper or lighter? And then they'll tell me what it could be based off of that. I just like to be very specific just so my client can essentially be forced to tell me how much pressure they want or need. So that's what I'm going to say during the session. So let's say you've done the whole back or the whole front side, whatever. Now it's time to flip the clients. This is a funny thing to communicate because some people don't always understand because, you know, they're in the middle of getting a massage. They're in a different place. So first I will add some compression just in case they've fallen asleep or something like that. That will gently wake them up. And then I will say, all right, now whenever you're ready, I am going to have you turn onto your back so that you're facing the ceiling. And then I want you to slide down the table until your head is on the table. So that is a very specific direction. I'm telling them where their head should face when they flip over. Then I'm asking them to slide down the table because we all know we don't want their head to be on the face cradle. That is very specific. And then I like to say whenever you're ready because I do not want to rush them when it comes to flipping over. I don't want them to think, oh, they got to do it right then and there. That is another phrase that I'll say during the session. And then at the end of the session, this is something that I struggled with throughout my practice, especially when I worked at a spa. I was like, how do I end the session? Okay, so this is exactly what I would say at the end of the session. When the session is over and I'm done, I will actually say their name so that they're kind of woken up. I'll say, all right, Janice, that is our session. Take your time getting off the table and I will meet you on the other side of the door. So that is essentially what I would say at the end of a session, just to let them know that I am dipping out, I'm leaving, and I will meet you on the other side of the door. So that's exactly what I would say. I would not leave it ambiguous. I'm not going to be like, oh, that's our session, and then that's it. I'm giving them their next step to take. And this is like really especially for new clients. You're not going to say this to a client that is returning to you. So we talked about what we're going to say during our intake, during the session, flipping the client, at the end of the session. Now let's talk about what you're going to say after the session is over, and then you're encouraging them to come back to your practice. So we're at the end of the session. It's time to get our payment. It's time to say our goodbyes. And then it's also time to encourage our clients to book with us again. I have a quick video on my 5-step rebooking process. I'll link it somewhere up here. And in that 5-step rebooking process, one of the steps is to check in with your client. So after your client has come out of the room and they've had their session, and maybe you give them water, maybe you give them some type of refreshment, whatever it is, you'll check in with them. So you'll ask them how they're feeling. At that time, they can tell you how they're feeling, like, you know, they'll give you your praises, you know, all that stuff if you really help them. And then you're going to let them know that you have a treatment plan for them, or just let them know how they're going to keep up with themselves even after the session. So what they're going to do in between their sessions to essentially get the results that they want. So whether that's stretches, whether that is some type of self-massage that they have to do, that's what you're going to let them know. And then you're going to open your calendar and you're going to only give them 2 to 3 options to book. You never, ever, ever, and this is something my massage instructor taught me, is you never want to just say that your availability is wide open. You always want to give them a couple of options to book, because even after getting a massage, you know, you don't want them to be confused. You don't want them to have a whole lot of options. You just want to give them a couple of options to book and then go from there. So never really reveal that if you have full availability or that you're not busy. And I can expand on that in another video. So you're going to lead the invitation. So this is the part where you're going to be confident and invite them to come back. After you've given them a treatment plan, you're going to say, okay, let's go ahead and book your next session. I have this time and this time available. So that is very to the point. It assumes that they want to see you again, because by this time you should have already sensed the energy to see if they want to book with you again. It just shows confidence, the fact that you're saying, okay, let's go ahead and book your next session. Or you can do it more permission based. So this is where you're going to say, so are you ready to book your next session? Essentially that's the same thing, but you're phrasing it like a question, because that kind of seems like you're asking for permission to book their next session. So that's just another approach to go about it. I'm hoping that all of your new clients say say, yes, let's go ahead and book our next session, that's when you're gonna go ahead and put them on the books and book their following sessions. That is what you're gonna say after the session. You never wanna skip this step. I know a lot of you are nervous to ask your client to come back to see you because you're like, oh, I don't know if they liked it. But if you are checking in with them and you're communicating properly, just go ahead and ask. Just ask, all right, are you ready to book your next session? And then they can tell you yes or no. So after you've already gotten your client rebooked for their next session, I want to give you some bonus phrases that you can use. Let's say you're talking to your clients on the phone or you're expecting payment and all that good stuff. So just some bonus phrases that I use in my practice to make my life easier. So now I want to talk about setting boundaries with your clients. What's great about this part of the video is these are scripts that my virtual receptionist will actually use. All of my receptionists, when they're answering the phone, they're saying these scripts. So one of the things that we do is, for example, confirmation calls. So if we have an appointment coming up in the next couple of days, as a courtesy, we offer confirmation calls. So something that my receptionist will say on the confirmation calls, or I'll do it myself, is we'll say, and I'm looking at some notes here, so that's why I'm looking this way. Hi, this is so-and-so calling from True Massage Bodywork. I just wanted to confirm our appointment at XYZ time. If you need to cancel or reschedule, please call XYZ number within 24 hours or there will be XYZ fee. Have a great day. And so that is an example of what you can say when you're doing your confirmation calls. Next, I want to tell you what we say when we're actually booking appointments. Anytime a client is booking an appointment over the phone, my receptionists have to say this or else we cannot book their session. Or if they're booking online, they have to agree to these terms in order to book a session. Actually, let me bring up my other note. It's a very long script because we want to make sure that there's no miscommunications. So this is exactly what they're going to say during their confirmation calls. All right, so this says, please note that once you have booked an appointment with us, it means that we have reserved time in our schedule to exclusively travel to you. All appointments require a valid card on file. Canceling or rescheduling your appointment less than 24 hours before it's scheduled to take place will be subject to a penalty of 50% to 100% of the total cost of service. To avoid a cancellation fee, you must cancel more than 24 hours before the time of your session. We do not accept text messages or social media messages for cancellations. In the case that we cannot reach you when we arrive or feel unsafe at your location, we reserve the right to charge 100% for the session. To avoid a cancellation fee, you must cancel more than 24 hours in advance. It's a little bit redundant because we want to double make sure that they know the policy so they can't say that they didn't know when it's time to charge them because it was a no call, no show or something like that. So that is another example of a phrase that you can use whether you're booking appointments over the phone or whatever the case may be. So what happens if your client, they're a no call, no show? What would you say to them? This is the phrasing that I would say. So I would basically call them, and if I get their voicemail, I would say, hi, I'm calling because our session started at so-and-so time and now it's this time. So if you would like to still keep this session, we will be ending at the time scheduled. If you do not show up for this session, then you will be subject to 100% for the total cost of the service. Thank you. Have a great day. So of course you're going to do like whatever your greeting is as well, hi, I'm calling from True Massage Bodywork, but that is essentially the phrasing that you would use for that. I really hope this video was helpful for you. I try to be as specific as possible for what are the phrases that I would use in my practice. If you have any phrases that you would also include or phrases that you absolutely do not say anymore, please put it in the comments below and make sure that you're following me on Instagram because I post to my stories just about every day showing you behind the scenes of my business and my life. So go ahead and follow me on Instagram and I will see y'all in the next video. Bye.